Saguli swagwek, galiwalolok sneungyats. Hello everyone, my name is Mary Joy Elijah. I'm a PhD candidate from Oneida Nation of the Thames, and I work at the Oneida Language and Cultural Center, where I have been the director for the past 23 years. What I want to talk to you about today is to urge everyone to involve fluent speakers in their work, whether it's revitalization or whether you're calling it regenescence. I call it survivance of our languages, but please involve them. In our community, we have a team of mother tongue speakers, fluent speakers. They're in their 70s and 80s now, and that's my research team. They anchor our program. They have to do with absolutely every production that we make. And that's why I want to talk to you about the importance and the value of their contribution to all of our work. A couple of things had to happen to bring clarity and vision for me to talk about my research. First, it was my dissertation supervisor who opened my eyes to the role that I have here at the Language Center. I was reluctant and hesitant to talk about my role because I'm not a fluent speaker. I grew up, like many of you, hearing my parents speak and not involving me in the conversation. And of course, they all did this to spare us from punishment at school for speaking Oneida. The life, the essence of what I was trying to get across wasn't coming through in my writing. And my dissertation supervisor suggested, why don't you talk? Why don't we do interviews? So we changed our methodology, something quite unique, where he asked guided questions, and we ended up doing 16 interviews where he's asking me and I'm answering, and we're having conversation and dialogue, and we're both contributing. We ended up with 34 hours of audio recordings. And after analyzing that, I realized I have a central role here at the Oneida Language and Cultural Center. What he said was, you're the glue, you're integral. And then I realized probably none of the developments or projects that we're doing would have been possible had it not been for me. So even though I'm not a fluent speaker, I do have something to share. I do have knowledge that may be helpful to others doing this kind of work. So I realized there needs to be someone like me. I've been here for 23 years orchestrating the productions and the development here creatively and successfully. I have realized my own value. The second thing, I've come through a serious illness, and I'm happy to be recovering from that. While ill, I thought I might die from this, and I was considering what things really mattered to me. And second to family, it was my completing my dissertation. I realized that if I don't share, if I don't talk about, if I don't write down our work that we did together as a team here, no one will ever know about it. No one will ever know the depth and the breadth that we have been involved in with our projects here. The Oneida Language and Cultural Center has been the research site for the Oneida Language Survivance Project for the past, 20 years. The research goal has always been to find the most effective method for adults to learn the Oneida language, to speak and teach the Oneida language. Models from around the world have been tested and adapted to the Oneida context, some with more success than others. Among the first that we tried was the master-apprentice method pioneered by Leanne Hinton, who published a book in 2002. I actually was in Arizona, and there was a conference at the University of Arizona, and I submitted my research in progress to be a presenter. And while I was there, Leanne Hinton from UCLA was there presenting on her Master Apprentice. She hadn't come out with the book yet. That didn't come out till 2007. And this was the year 2000 when I heard her speak. I went and talked to her right away, and I asked her, well, how do you quickly learn, what's the fastest way to learn a language? And she said, move in with your mother and live with her all summer. And I said, there's a reason I left home. And that didn't ever happen. But she was probably right. That is the fastest way, is to immerse yourself. So from that, she gave me her draft material, and she asked us to test it in our community. So when I got home, we start setting up Master Apprentice groups, and soon realized we needed a training. So we sent for the trainer, and Nancy Steele came. She's a co-author of that book, The Master Apprentice Method. And she came to the Oneida Fairgrounds, and we had about 30 participants come out, and we were there for 3 days training on the Master Apprentice Method. Most of you are probably familiar with what that is, but it's action-oriented. You talk about what you're doing, if you're doing the dishes, if you're going for coffee, if you're doing the laundry. You're just talking together about that. And we set up sessions, actually, and it was probably our most successful session that we ever had when we were still in a one-room schoolhouse. We set up 4 stations that were revolving, and we used this Master Apprentice method where a speaker and an apprentice taught the other 3 people how to say a phrase. They had 11 minutes to do it. Then we had an egg timer and debriefed it. We had 5 minutes of English, then the rest was all back in the language. That was so effective. And after the training, when we set those groups up, we called them language nests back in the day. And it wasn't for children, it was for adults. We had 4 locations going concurrently with at least 10 members in each site. So they were at the community center, they were at the seniors building, they were with us, and maybe at the school. But we had all that rolling very well. And of course money runs out. That's always the thing, and we can't ever, you know that, we can't ever sustain anything because our funding always runs out. The next thing we took up was the Oneida Grammar Root Method. Ganadawagon came and taught that. And some of us had taken his Mohawk course at the University of Western Ontario. And we were talking to the speakers about what's the pattern? How do you change it to make it past, present, future? Where are the endings? And they didn't know what we were talking about. And so we told them about this David Miracle, the class at Western, and they said, bring him to us. Bring him out here and let him tell us what he does. So he came that summer. He spent the whole summer with them. And what we ended up doing was adapting his Mohawk root method into Oneida Grammar Root Method with the speaker's help. We actually ran a class that first year with 26 students for, I think it was for a week or 2. We partnered with Western and the post-secondary counseling unit, and together we made a credit course here in Oneida. So the first year it ran, I believe, was 2012, and it was at the fairgrounds, and we had 50 students. We had to turn people away because of space restrictions. And off we went. And, you know, I bet we had almost perfect attendance. and it ran for 4 weeks in the summer. And at the end of that 4 weeks, they got a credit course. So what they had to do was register for university, and once they completed the course successfully, they had a credit rating. Whether they decided to ever return or not, they've got an Oneida language credit waiting for them. So that went over so well. We did it again the next year, and the next year. All the classes were filled to capacity, 50 students every year. That was a good learning experience. The speakers were involved to a point, and the part that didn't go over so well with them was the patterns. A lot of times the examples would be forced to fit a pattern. And they would say, but we don't say it that way. But nobody would ever say that here. And they'd go along and it would be up on a board and they'd be saying, no, who talks like that? Nobody talks like that. And so in their way, they wouldn't interrupt anymore because they knew they were interrupting the class. But at lunchtime, what they would do is they'd go up to the board and they'd rub that out and they'd write down how they say it. Nothing to do with the pattern that was being taught, but you shouldn't have used that example if it didn't fit. Just don't even use it then. Think of something that does fit. But that was hard. That was hard to get that done. So that ran for 3 years, and then it went other places after that. And it had value. I will say that had value. I took it off 3 years, and I still didn't learn the premise on that was you have to learn 52 pronouns. If you don't learn those 52 pronouns, you're never going to learn to speak Oneida. And so right off the hop, you've got 52 memory, color-coded memory things to try and learn. And my brain doesn't work like that. And I know I'm only one person, and there's other people who thrive on that kind of thing. But it's not meant for everybody. And I would say maybe 10 to 15% of the population really caught on to that, like the ones that tried it really caught on. The rest of us have kind of a working knowledge of it, and it's good because we understand the mechanics, but to get us speaking conversationally, no, it didn't work that way. But it does give you a firm grasp of the mechanics, how the language fits together. We came upon the Common European Framework Reference for Languages. I was studying at Western at the time, and Dr. David Little, who authored a lot of the materials, you can find them on the Council of Europe website. He was our resident scholar that summer. But once he started putting up his diagrams, like the visuals, I caught on, and I thought, okay, I think this is going to work for Oneida. Our preliminary work and trials had indicated a high likelihood that the portfolio could be adapted, and indeed it has been. So we started this about 2010, and it's now ready. We have an Oneida language portfolio proficiency course for the workplace. So all band employees were mandated by our band council to take this course. We also have the proficiency testing, which ranks their ability rate, and our hope is that their ranking will be added to the salary grid, where the A1 ranking would mean an increase in salary. We're just initiating that with HR right now. The master speakers and apprentice function as a research team. We actually do this all together, but they actually steer the research design by consensus. Taking an Indigenous research perspective, this team engages in participatory action research to test and refine what works best for Oneida language learners. Dr. Sean Wilson spoke at Ryerson University in May 2012 to First Nation graduates, where he explained the application of the Indigenous research paradigm, using our research process in Oneida as his example. This provided clarity and helped to identify the next steps in our work. Now, here's the real beauty of this model and the real takeaway from this 30 minutes. Involve your fluent mother tongue speakers in the process. Whatever method you are choosing to work with, it doesn't matter, as long as you filter it through your speaker's mindset. The point is not that we as language technicians know the theories and strategies and methods for second language teaching and learning. What's important is that your master speakers have that knowledge. You pass that knowledge to them. They have to know the theories, strategies, and methods. And yes, it will take some time. It took 2 years for our master speaker team to understand the Common European Framework Reference for Languages that we have adapted to the Oneida language portfolio. What happens is usually one speaker will catch on. And once they understand what's going on, they take it into the Oneida language and they explain it to the others. And from that point, I'm out. I'm out as an English speaker, and I'm there as a resource. They'll stop their discussion and they'll ask me in English for clarification, which I'll answer. And the best way to do that is to demonstrate it if you have visuals, to give them an actual example of what you mean. I hear them whispering, "What does she want us to do?" And then I know that they do need a concrete example to show them, and then they transfer that into Oneida. I wait for them to process that, and sometimes it takes more than a week. But then they'll tell me if they think it's going to work in Oneida or not, and sometimes it doesn't. But most times it can work with some adaptation to our own community's socio-cultural context. So maybe the methods, the way they're doing things, nobody would do that. Nobody would do that here in Oneida. So what do you do then? You do it differently. So, for example, the big second language strategy is display the meaning, demonstrate the meaning. And you kind of have to be a clown. Those of you who are teachers know that you have to act up sometimes and be the clown. Well, the speakers are not going to do that. But you will find an apprentice in the group that's quite willing to do that, to play that role. So that's how we adapt. We have a speaker and an apprentice instructor who is willing to be the clown and do the acting that's necessary to display the meaning. So oftentimes we see videos or examples where the speakers are talking and talking, and if it's not translated, we have no idea what they're talking about. And that's incomprehensible input. You can't do that. You can't do that to learners. You have to show them what you're talking about. You have to demonstrate it. So with this adaptation, what comes out at the end, once the speakers mull it around and think, and then what they come out with is the Oneida-ized version of the Common European Framework. And that's what our Oneida language portfolio is. It's gone through their process. It's gone through their Indigenous knowledge that they carry and they hold specific to Oneida, nowhere else but here. And that's the kind of adaptation, that's the kind of protocols and understandings that they bring out and add to our development, and it's critical. It's absolutely critical to understanding. I often hear younger people at conferences like this, when we used to meet in person in the good old days, and I could hear them mumbling, oh, it's so hard to work with a speaker. Oh, they say it different every time. Oh, they don't know how to work anything. They don't know digital. They don't know how to do anything. And there's impatience that I hear. But you know what? There's a reason why they say it differently every time. And if you take the time to sit down with them, they'll tell you what those differences are. And again, it's critical to the development of your work. That's the only place you're going to learn that. You can't learn it from the linguistic charts, the lexicons. They can list everything out and show you how to add this part and that part, but they can't tell you why. They can't tell you why. And they can't tell you why sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't fit that pattern whatsoever. And they'll tell you why. Our processing, like I said, it took 2 years. Then we were ready to test the prototype. We had our first class of band employees coming through. We were in the middle of the session and COVID hit. COVID hit. And we never ever did have the chance to do the proficiency ranking tests. And we have no data on that because we haven't been able to do it. The testing aligns with the modules that are covered, so it only tests what was covered in the session. And the testing will rank learners at an A1 ranking if they're successful. And that's where the plan comes in that we've proposed, where these proficiency rankings will be reflected on the salary grid and result in pay increases. So that's one of the ways you can use this testing in the workplace. We have the whole set here of our workplace proficiency course. We've got the textbook for the instructors, and the instructors are apprentice speakers, apprentice learners, and they have a master speaker in the classroom with them. And everybody loves that. Everybody loves having a master speaker there who often has to correct the instructor if they're mispronouncing things. And they always fill in with the funny stories about any topic that we could cover. There's a workbook for the students as well, so that you can keep track of your own progress. And that's what I like about the evaluation. I can do, Gwenigi. I can introduce myself in the language. I can understand when someone's introducing themselves to me. I can respond when someone asks me to introduce myself. I can understand when I read an introduction from someone in the Oneida language. So all of these are I can do's that you can actually do. So instead of me saying I'm not a fluent speaker, I can say, well, I'm probably approaching A2 in reading and writing, but I'm still A1 in a lot of my speaking. But I can rank myself now. I don't have to say, oh, I'm not fluent. Like that'll take 20 years before I can say anything positive about my speaking. But with this method, in the first week, you can test and you can say, I can do this. So the student keeps their own portfolio of their progress. Pretty soon they'll have a big stack of papers of everything that they can do. Look at all the things I can do. And that's the beauty of this. That's what I like about this. And in class, we take the time to think about, well, how did we learn that? Was it because somebody said something funny? Was it because there were audio-visual materials up? Was it because you heard it someplace else too? And then you start keeping track of how it is you learn. And then we can start shaping our teaching to fit how you learn. So I really like this model, and it has worked. It does work. After the 6th session, our learners can stay in the Oneida language, introducing themselves, their parents, their grandparents, to each other and asking. They can stay in Oneida language conversation for 6 minutes, and we have recorded that. The last bit that I want to talk about is to encourage you to use technology with the speakers. You can see in the video clips that we've been showing all along that our speakers are quite comfortable in front of the camera now. At first, they were reluctant to put the headphones on, very self-conscious. They sat with their heads bowed. They didn't think, we can't write a book. We can't make a movie. We can't do a skit. No, we can't. Yes, you can. You can do all of these things. And it was really fulfilling for me to see them raise their head.
Kadiok ni kon akeh le jalong kadiok kwa kalen ladinagle amdon amundisten konosare anyway kinosoni.
We're to the point now where we have the speakers in our studio wearing the Oculus Quest headsets, and we're delving into virtual reality, adding that to our strategy. I've read the research, and that is highly, highly successful. It engages the learner, and it's interactive. So the next thing coming up for us is we're going to have Oneida speaker avatars. We have 32 speakers left, mother tongue speakers in our community, and we are going to ensure a succession plan by using them as avatars. So that's the legacy that our team is going to leave behind. Nikiwa.